Yo, here we go. Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. Chase Sr. here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. There are so many great content options out there. And so when you decide to hang out here with us and choose us, we greatly appreciate that. Coming up here on the program, the Philadelphia Eagles making multiple roster moves going into this Week 2 game against Kansas City. And then also on the Jalen Carter front, the NFL on Tuesday making their final decision that he is not going to get suspended for this Week 2 tilt against Kansas City. But Adam Schefter shares some new insight as far as what is going on with Carter behind the scenes in Philadelphia. Before we dive into all of that, let's keep the channel hot. We're bringing you excellent analysis and coverage every single day year-round right here on the program, and we're 13 subscribers away from 127,000. Join this momentous train, lock us in, hit that sub button, and what you get, daily Eagles coverage, and you become a more informed Eagles fan. Let's begin here. We have some injury news to touch on here. A lot of people wondering, Chase, why did the Eagles trade for running back Tank Bigsby, a former third-round pick? He's a solid player. He ran for nearly 800 yards and 7 touchdowns last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, that picture has become clearer because we have a Will Shipley injury update from Eagles insider Derek Gunn, who for a long time was a great reporter for NBC Sports Philadelphia and is obviously still plugged into this Eagles organization. Sources tell me Shipley does have a fractured rib, and the move for Tank Bigsby is not only to add depth at the running back position, but Bigsby can also help out on special teams, including returning kicks. Talked about that in the breaking news reaction video that I did when Shipley got injured. I think it was on that screen pass from Jalen Hurts when he swung it out to Shipley. He showed some good vision, some good patience to let his blockers get set up in front of him, and then he took that football down toward the goal line. This is an unfortunate blow for the Eagles because I do think that Shipley could have a legitimate role as a RB2 and backup running back to Saquon Barkley, and frankly, I really like the player. In the preseason, and obviously in a limited amount of snaps last year during the regular season and in the playoffs, he showed me some juice. Dr. Jesse Morse, an injury expert in the field of fantasy football, relayed this news on the injury for Will Shipley and the complexities behind a rib injury because the severity can certainly differ. At the minimum, guys usually miss 2 weeks, but if an organ is damaged, that can take up to 6 to 8 weeks depending on specifics. Sometimes returning with a flak jacket is an option. That's a big time frame, and these are really painful injuries, so returning too quickly is not an option, and sometimes even flying is not allowed if a lung gets punctured. In my opinion, Tank Bigsby is Saquon Barkley's backup handcuff now, at least until we hear specifics regarding Shipley's rib injury. And because, ladies and gentlemen, he plays the running back spot, that rib injury even more painful, and the Eagles have to exercise even more caution. And so this is why the Eagles traded for Tank Bigsby. They gave up a 5th and a 6th in the 2026 NFL draft for him. That is not nothing. It's a sizable package for a player who is a violent, downhill, physical runner who adds a lot of physicality and juice to this Eagles backfield. He's a former third-round pick out of Auburn. Of note, a previous regime with the Jacksonville Jaguars under Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson. Now that Liam Cohen is the new head coach and they have a new GM, the Jags aren't really tied to Bigsby. He started to fall out of the rotation because of how ETN looked. They also really liked the rookie in Bashal Tutin. They also elevated Cody Schrader, the former Mizzou player who played like D3 college football prior to going to Mizzou, from the practice squad to the active roster. And so Bigsby became expendable and available for Howie Roseman. A big thing here, Will Shipley had turned into a pretty solid kick returner for the Eagles. He was back there in week 1 alongside John Mechie when healthy, and so Bigsby can play there. Special teams coordinator Michael Clay had talked about that, and Shipley could be out for a little while, so Bigsby can help to replace him. What happens to A.J. Dillon once Shipley is back? We'll monitor that. I'm not sure. Obviously, Saquon is RB1. When Shipley comes back, he'll be RB2. Will the Eagles have 3 running backs on the 53 or 4? Because they're not going to cut Tank Bigsby. If they were to cut a running back, I would imagine it would be A.J. Dillon. But obviously, the Eagles will cross that bridge when they get to it, and they can pull off some roster gymnastics. Speaking of this Eagles roster, a few roster moves to touch on here. Yesterday, last night, the Eagles waived defensive lineman Gabe Hall from the active roster. They released running back Montrell Johnson from the practice squad, and then they signed center guard Jake Majors to the practice squad. He played his college football at Texas. I have a scouting report coming up on him in just a moment. I was surprised by this. I thought when the Eagles traded away Thomas Booker, that was a telltale sign that they really like Gabe Hall and Byron Young. And I still think that is true. And Gabe Hall did make this initial 53, but it came down to a roster crunch, and Gabe Hall was on the outside looking in. Because he's a younger player, not a vested veteran yet, he does have to pass through waivers to come back to the practice squad. And so we'll see if that happens. We'll get that news here at some point today or tomorrow, I would imagine. What's also of note here is how the Eagles have 6 edge rushers on their 53-man roster. And I don't really like the roster gymnastics that they've made in this case. They have decided to hold on to an older pass rusher and a veteran in Obu Okoronkwo, who was a healthy scratch in week 1 over a young developmental player in Gabe Hall, who I happen to like. As for Jake Majors, I think this is a pretty interesting addition to this Eagles practice squad. He was a UDFA. I thought he was going to be a late-round guy coming out of Texas. He spent his preseason and training camp with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They let him go with an injury settlement. But this is an exciting developmental piece potentially for offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. He had 57 starts at Texas and in his college career and played in some high-level games. That set a school record. He is short-armed and an average athlete, but he makes up for that in a couple of areas, right? He's technically very sound. He is very smart and understands protections well. I think the Eagles really like that about him. And also, we know that the Eagles like to get out in space on some of those pull blocks. Jake Majors has the athleticism to pull. More roster moves for the Eagles here. They have signed defensive tackle Jacob Sykes to the practice squad and released cornerback Eli Ricks from the practice squad. Jacob Sykes was with this team throughout the preseason. In week 1 against Cincinnati, he made a really impressive play where he was screaming into the backfield. 6'3", 277 pounds. With this Eagles 3-4 hybrid front, he could play defensive tackle or defensive end. Smart guy. Went to Harvard. He was there from 2018 through 2021. Then at UCLA in 2022. UDFA, signed with the Seattle Seahawks. He's played in the UFL the last 2 years, and so his calendar year of 2025 has been very busy. Played in the UFL and then spent training camp and the preseason with the Eagles. As far as Eli Ricks goes, his development has kind of flatlined a little bit. I thought in 2023, when he was a UDFA coming out of college, started at LSU, went to Alabama, he could have been a diamond in the rough, and it looked as though we were heading in that direction. Remember in the preseason a couple of years ago, going into 2023, he had the pick 6 against the Baltimore Ravens, and then I know the Eagles' defense was horrible coming off that Super Bowl loss against Kansas City in 2023, and the coaching was a mess with Sean Desai and then Matt Patricia, but I thought at moments Eli Ricks had played pretty well. But the last 2 years hasn't really done much, and then this summer, he didn't make the initial 53. He was brought onto the practice squad, let go, brought onto the practice squad, let go, and I imagine the Eagles will bring him back at some point. It is Kansas City Chiefs Hate Week. If you hate the Chiefs, show me. Let your voices be heard and type FKC down in the comment section. This has become a very good AFC-NFC rivalry across the NFL. We'll get to Jalen Carter and an update from Adam Schefter just around the corner. But first, our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Chubby's. If you like the polo that I'm wearing on today's show, I have great news for you. You can get $10 off when you use the code CHATSPORTS at chubbyshorts.com/chatsports. Furthermore, they have so many great items. The leaves are turning. the temperatures are dropping, and the weekend air is getting that nice autumn crisp. Just because the weather is changing over doesn't mean you have to pack away the fun. Chubby's is here to make sure your fall wardrobe hits harder than a PSL on a slow Sunday with soft, stretchy, fall-ready staples built for maximum comfort and minimal effort. Mark your calendars. The Chubby's Fall Collection drops September 9th. So that was yesterday as of this recording as we're live here on the show. And it's packed with cozy gear that brings the metaphorical and real heat. Later this month, they're launching the new Comfort Collection featuring the Everywhere Jogger. Who doesn't love a good jogger? I do. It's a perfect pant for impromptu naps, weekend errands, and everything in between. Chip loves wearing joggers so he can show off his ankles. We all agree fall should be cozy, not constricting, and Chubby's delivers peak softness without sacrificing an ounce of style. So go ahead, break up with stiff pants and embrace the fun side of fall. Chubby's has everything you want, right? Polos, shorts, swimsuits, all types of different designs, colors, and looks. You want to go out on a date? Rock with Chubby's. You want to hit the golf course? Wear some Chubby's gear. You want to hang out by the pool? You can do that as well. Here's the deal. Whether you're layering up for tailgates, lounging through lazy Sundays, or just leaning fully into fall comfort, Chubby's has you covered. For a limited time, Chubby's is giving our listeners $10 off your order with the code CHATSPORTS at chubbyshorts.com/chatsports. That is code CHATSPORTS using that link at the bottom of your screen. All right, to the back half of the show. As we know, the big breaking news Tuesday for the Philadelphia Eagles, the National Football League not suspending Jalen Carter an additional game. They looked at him getting booted prior to that Cowboys game as that one-game suspension. In case you missed the news, here is the report from Tuesday from Adam Schefter that the NFL is fining Jalen Carter $57,222. Of note, that is a game check. And so that has to do with that one-game suspension. The league also says the game he was ejected for is going to serve as that one-game suspension. And then after talking to the Eagles, the NFL, and the NFL Players Association, Jalen has decided not to appeal and focus on the Chiefs game, according to his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. And I think this is the right decision by the NFL. I think an additional game suspension would have been excessive. I mean, that Chiefs defensive tackle open hand slapped Travis Kelce in the face. He didn't get ejected. He's not going to get suspended. And I think that crime is worse than spitting on somebody. Now, obviously, spitting is a little bit more disrespectful, but shoot, a fan touched DeAndre Hopkins and Lamar Jackson, and then Lamar Jackson pushed him, right? And so I know the NFL is trying to clean up sportsmanship, and what Jalen Carter did is inexcusable. It's absolutely idiotic, but he's getting docked a game check, and he got suspended. And I'm not excusing what Jalen Carter did, but context is always important, right? And this is not void of context. We saw it. Dak spitting on him, or spitting toward him first. He didn't spit on him. Important to note, of course, Dak spitting toward Jalen Carter first changed the entire situation because Dak provoked him and he started it. Now, did Jalen Carter bite the bait? Yes. Was it a smart veteran move by Dak to get Jalen Carter booted from the game, knowing that he's an emotionally immature guy? Yes. But we'll always remember here, ladies and gentlemen, that Dak spit first. Now, here's what Adam Schefter had to say about Carter on 97.5 The Fanatic this morning. I would guess we are done with the punishments of Jalen Carter. The team was fighting for Jalen Carter to not be suspended. It would be unusual for the team to go to bat on his behalf and say, okay, we're going to sit you for a quarter. The NFL determined the punishment is retroactive to last week. I would think the team would stand by that. I'm sure the team has had conversations with Jalen Carter on how that type of behavior is unacceptable. And that has to do with whether or not the Eagles are going to penalize Carter in this Week 2 game against Kansas City, whether they bench him for a quarter or a drive. We're not sure what's going to happen on that end. Nick Sirianni hasn't been willing to reveal what the Eagles' plans are. He just continues to deny, and say, hey, we're going to handle everything in-house. And when I say he's going to deny, he's denying any of the questions. He's not answering any of those from the media this week. All right, be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. We're reaching millions of people here every single month on YouTube. Thousands and thousands of people every single day. The channel has never been hotter. But good news for you, you can find additional coverage from me on my platforms over there on X and IG.